Ethan sat at the edge of his bed, his hands gripping his phone as if it were a lifeline. Lucas's contact hovered on the screen, but his thumb refused to hit call. They hadn't spoken in days, and the silence between them felt heavier than any argument. In the distance, the competition loomed closer, only a week away. His parents had begun hovering more than usual, reminding him of the importance of every practice session, every flawless note. But the closer the competition came, the more distant Ethan felt from it. He couldn't escape the nagging feeling that the piano keys no longer spoke to him the way Lucas's guitar had, messy, alive, and full of emotion. The fear gripped him. What if he wasn't just losing Lucas? What if he was losing himself, too? Lucas sat slumped on a couch in Noah's cramped apartment, his guitar resting against his legs. His bandmates were arguing about a potential gig that could be a major opportunity. A record label scout was rumored to attend. It was the kind of break Lucas had been waiting for. But his heart wasn't in it. His thoughts kept drifting back to Ethan. Noah nudged him, noticing the far-off look in Lucas's eyes. "All right, man, what's going on? You've been weird all week." Lucas exhaled slowly, his hands running through his messy hair. "It's Ethan." "Figured." Noah leaned back, crossing his arms. "So what happened?" Lucas hesitated, then admitted, "I told myself I wouldn't get caught up in this. He's from a whole different world, you know? And I thought, maybe he'd never really see me the way I see him." Noah's expression softened. "But you do care about him." Lucas nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, more than I thought I would." Noah gave him a small, reassuring smile. "Then what are you waiting for?" Lucas laughed bitterly. "Ethan's not exactly the leap first type." "Maybe you have to leap first," Noah suggested. "Otherwise, you'll regret it." Lucas looked down at his guitar, the weight of Noah's words sinking in. He had always prided himself on going after what he wanted: music, freedom, life. Why was this any different? At Ethan's house, Claire stopped by unannounced, as she often did, with an air of calm that only she could carry. She found Ethan sitting at the piano, his fingers ghosting over the keys without actually playing anything. "You look miserable," Claire said, plopping down beside him. Ethan sighed. "Thanks for the observation." She tilted her head, studying him. "What's really going on, Ethan?" For a long moment, Ethan didn't answer. Then, as if the dam finally broke, he whispered, "I think I'm in love with him." Claire's eyes softened, though she wasn't surprised. "So, what's the problem?" Ethan shook his head, frustration bubbling up again. "It's complicated. My parents, my future, everything's mapped out, and Lucas doesn't fit into any of it. And even if he did, I don't know how to make this work." Claire rested a hand on his shoulder. "You're allowed to want more than what they expect of you, Ethan. You've been living your whole life trying to meet everyone else's standards. Maybe it's time you start asking yourself what you want." Ethan lowered his gaze. What did he want? For the first time, the answer wasn't a trophy or an award. It was Lucas. The day of the piano competition arrived, and Ethan stood backstage, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit. The grand piano on stage gleamed under the bright lights, waiting for him. But as the announcer called his name, Ethan's feet felt frozen. He could feel his parents watching from the audience, their expectations like an invisible chain around his neck. He sat at the piano, his hands poised over the keys. He played the first few notes, crisp and flawless, but as the melody unfolded, something inside him cracked wide open. The music felt hollow, like it wasn't his anymore. His fingers faltered, and the notes stumbled. A murmur rippled through the audience. Ethan closed his eyes, his heart racing, and in that moment the answer became clear. He couldn't do this anymore. With a deep breath, Ethan stood from the piano bench. The audience gasped, and his parents exchanged horrified glances, but Ethan didn't care. For the first time in his life, he felt free. Ignoring the whispers in the stairs, he walked off the stage. As he pushed through the exit doors into the cool night air, a weight lifted off his chest. Now, there was only one place he needed to be. Lucas sat at a small cafe, strumming his guitar absent-mindedly as he waited for the rest of his band to arrive. They had a big gig that night, the kind of gig that could change everything. But Lucas's heart wasn't in it. He looked up when the bell above the cafe door jingled, and his breath hitched in his chest. Standing in the doorway, slightly out of breath, and wearing a look of quiet determination, was Ethan. Lucas set his guitar down, his heart thundering in his chest. Ethan? Ethan walked over, stopping just in front of him. His usual guarded expression was gone, replaced by something vulnerable and real. I couldn't do it, Ethan said softly. The competition, the expectations, any of it. Lucas swallowed hard, his heart aching at the sight of Ethan standing there, raw and open. What are you saying? Ethan took a step closer, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm saying I choose you, Lucas. I don't know what the future looks like, but I want to figure it out with you. For a moment, Lucas just stared, the weight of Ethan's words settling over him like a melody finally resolving itself. Then, without a word, Lucas pulled Ethan into a tight embrace, burying his face in the crook of Ethan's neck. I've been waiting for you to say that, Lucas whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Ethan smiled against Lucas's shoulder, the tension in his chest finally easing. I'm sorry it took me so long. Lucas pulled back slightly, his eyes searching Ethan's. You really mean it? Ethan nodded, his gaze steady. Yeah, I do. A slow grin spread across Lucas's face, and without thinking, he grabbed his guitar. Come on, he said, tugging Ethan toward the small stage at the back of the cafe. What are we doing? Ethan asked, laughing softly. Lucas grinned. We're making music, Ethan, the way it's meant to be. And as they sat side by side on that tiny stage, Lucas strumming his guitar and Ethan's hands dancing over the cafe's old upright piano, the music that filled the room was unlike anything either of them had ever played before, imperfect, spontaneous, and absolutely perfect. It was theirs. And as the crowd began to gather, drawn in by the magic of their duet, Ethan and Lucas shared a glance, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The music between them was only just beginning. It's vi,